So everybody, I am Torey Maerz, co-founder and CEO of Rocket Referrals, and with me today I have Rushang Shah, who is the Chief Marketing Officer at HawkSoft. Rushang, thanks for joining, man. I'm super excited to do this with you today.
All right, thank you for having us, Torey. We love the Rocket Referral story. It reflects a lot of our own core values at HawkSoft that we've stuck by for 27 years, and it's an absolute pleasure any chance we get to work with you guys.
Likewise, man. I think it's always great when we're on the phone with you guys at HawkSoft and we're talking about how we approach things. And it's more of, it's always one of those, yeah, me too. Like that's kind of how we go about it. So there's definitely a lot in common between our companies and how we approach things. And also just how we give back to the industry. What we're going to talk about today is a lot of Rushang's research and my research into understanding how to market to people during a recession. And I know that this is a Rocket Referrals and, HawkSoft webinar. We're not here to sell product and to promote things. We really want you to walk away with things that you can learn from and use to improve your business and, essentially share with others because we are all here to make sure that this industry thrives and can get through tough times. And that's what we're going to talk about. So I'm going to flip over to our slides. And before we get started, I'm going to just quickly highlight what we're going to talk about today. So essentially the state of the economy and what it means for your agency. Now, I'm not going to give the whole, State of the Union address here on the economy, where we're going to talk about some high-level things and specifically how it can impact insurance agencies and insurance consumers, what data and communications should be your primary focus, and then specific things that you can do to really navigate this slowdown. We want you to be able to walk away with some things, So with that said, I'm going to hand it over to Rushang. Just for people that are not familiar with HawkSoft, although I'm sure a lot of you on the call are, to just tell us a little bit about HawkSoft, and then I'll do my side.
Absolutely. Thank you to all the agencies on this webinar, especially those that are HawkSoft clients. We love you, and we are here because of you. And to those agencies that may be using another management system, I just want to say thank you for serving your communities. I mean, you guys are a central player in your communities and such a critical role, especially in times of crises, that hats off to you guys for doing what you do. HawkSoft, as many of you know, we're a management system. We've been around since 1995. We have a different way of doing business, as we like to say. When we started in this industry, the predominant management systems were financial packages. They were all about accounting, and then they grew into workflow management systems for an agency owner and their staff. HawkSoft came into the industry in 95 with a little bit different tact and a different approach. We were started by a former insurance agent, Paul Hawkins, who many of you have met at industry events. And our approach was not so much from the accounting side, though we do that as well, but we were about how to bring sanity to the office space, to the agency office, and how to fit in with the workflows that are already in place at the agency. So we didn't want to reinvent the wheel. We knew what the pain points were, and we wanted to simplify and make more efficient the workflows. Through 27 years, we've expanded. We got our start with personal lines. We are heavy into both personal and commercial now, and we have workflows for both. We like to call the transition of HawkSoft, we started as software, and where we feel the industry has gone is to a platform approach where no longer are you using one piece of software. It's a platform, and HawkSoft is the center of that platform that runs your agency, but you have an entire InsurTech stack that's built on that platform. So you have various partners in play that work with the rich data and notes that you're storing in the management system. And so no longer is it just software, it's actually a platform that you're building on. And Rocket Referrals has been a very strong partner of HawkSoft, doing a lot of meaningful things for our agencies, and we're excited to share some of that here.
And I have this, I know that you, had an important quote from Paul. We had a slide from this. I meant to advance it, but I missed it. So
This is a quote from Paul Hawkins. He said a long time ago, and we really live by this in our product development roadmap. We always say insurance agents know how to do their jobs better than software developers. So our role isn't to create workflows for you guys. Our role really is to make the workflows you're going through simpler and automate a lot of the things, because you're spending all this time putting rich data, as we call it, in the management system. You've got contact information, notes, and essentially the crux of your relationships with people. How do we make those better? That's our role, not necessarily redefining your workflows.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Talk about, similarities, just an interesting story. I have visited the HawkSoft, headquarters, and kind of gotten the story from Paul about how you guys started, and really spent a lot of time working in and out of insurance agents' offices to understand how they do business, and exactly what you're saying, like really build it for them. And that's how we created Rocket Referrals. The very first version of Rocket Referrals was built in programs sitting in the office of an insurance agent to really understand it. And that's why we wear these shirts that say "Made for Insurance," because we are so focused on helping insurance agents really improve the retention, and doing that exact just for this industry. And our goal is to do everything that we can to help you get your customers to love you more and to increase sales, right? So that's like our primary goal, and we do that through automated communications and cross sell and extra content that we've built with you. But then it's also connecting you with prospects and things like that. And the partnership that we've had with HawkSoft over the last few years has been awesome, and we've created a few very special things. HawkSoft is the only management system that we currently have which uses something that we call Sidecar. And Sidecar is an app that you install that runs alongside HawkSoft and allows you to really see all of the communication that we're sending out to people as you move around in HawkSoft. And what we want to create is a feeling that this is one system, that platform that Rushang is talking about, that you should be able to just do your job on a regular basis and not worry about connecting all of the technology together and things like that. And there's a couple of other neat things that we can do with HawkSoft that I'm going to talk about later through automated tasks and things like that. But I just really briefly wanted to highlight this integration and talk a little bit like, why are these two companies talking about this together? And that's because we work on this problem together. We're not here just to integrate products together and to make things easier to use. But we talk with Rushang and the team at HawkSoft and others to come up with solutions for problems, right? How do we work better together to make it easier for people to manage this, the economic downturn? How do we do that? And that's what we're here to talk about today. And so Rushang, stop me and just pause, let me know when you have additional points to go over, because I know we met briefly before this, and you have a lot of great points to make on things. So just let me know.
Absolutely.
So real briefly, I wanted to just give an overview on what the economic factors are that are affecting insurance, right? So, we say the name of this presentation was recession-proof, and I'm not here to talk about, are we in a recession, are we not in a recession, but let's just think about inflation as a whole, right? So inflation, it's obviously higher than it's ever been, and it's predicted to continue. I really hope that things get under control, but it's still pretty high. And even though unemployment is low, some places are starting, to experience layoffs and slowdowns, especially in the tech industry. And so you're going to have a lot of clients that are employed in places like this, where if they lose their job in a, big tech company, they might not be able to get it as, a new job as quickly as others. And that's going to change their, buying decisions and things. And so rates are starting to go up, and that affects people's borrowing power and essentially consumer confidence. That's the main factor here, is that people believe that things aren't going to improve anytime soon. And that's one of the biggest things that's the issue, because that changes the things that people buy, and it changes what they save for, and things like that. So um, essentially, all of that put together is it creates consumers that are more price sensitive, right? Postponing new investments, homes, cars, boats, and all of those things we want to be able to insure. And if they're not changing things, if they're not buying those additional toys, there's fewer things to insure. But also they're selling assets, right? So maybe if you're up market, you have people that have multiple homes and they're selling different homes and things like that. Or maybe they're selling other property that's insured. They're also looking for ways to reduce bills, and that includes insurance. Maybe they're going to be changing their deductibles and coverage options, and take on more risk, because the most important thing is their current bills. Um, that's the downsizing thing, to save money, not purchasing policies that they see as optional. Commercial clients are also affected. This is something that you're probably going to start to see first, because businesses are the ones, especially larger companies, who are starting to pause or saying, hey, maybe we shouldn't add this additional office space, because we got remote workers, or maybe because we're pausing our hiring, that's going to make a difference in our premiums and things like that. So essentially, consumers and businesses are willing to take more risk on things because they have a more immediate impact. And as you know, the more risk you take on, the less premiums they're paying to kind of guard against that. So that's really what happens when people are price sensitive.
Well, on the note of price sensitivity, Torey, one thing that I think is really relevant for agents. I've been to a lot of industry events and talked to a lot of agents. The one discussion point, price sensitivity, irrespective of the market you're in, whether you're selling insurance or you're selling software or services like us, that's a fact of life, right? You have an audience, and I would argue that most of us are in this audience of price sensitivity. But the one question I ask agency owners is, have you given your consumer, your insured, or your prospect a reason to look at your agency outside of just price? What have you done to make the discussion not about price? Is there something that your brand stands for? Is there something that you do different? Is your approach different? So unless the point being is that unless you give them a reason not to compare one agency to another on price, they have no choice but to compare on price. And so price sensitivity, I think Torey's spot on. In a time of recession or economic challenge, it's only amplified. And so that's only more reason that your agency needs to differentiate yourself on something other than price.
Yep, totally agree. And that's why one of the things that we tell people a lot is don't compete on price. And when you get a customer that you happen to have gotten because they came to you for lower rates, you've got to very quickly build up the reputation and the value around what you provide, so that they feel immense amount of value. Because if someone came to you for price, they'll leave for price, right? That's what they came to you for. So they're going to remain in sort of that bucket. And now it's just amplified. So we really have to move people off of this price sensitivity, which there's good things that we can do to fix that. We're going to talk about things. In fact, what price sensitive customers need, right? Proactive, meaningful communication, and personalized approach to every message. Agents, an agent who's there when they need you via a channel they prefer. So these three things here are based off of tons and tons of research and pieces of data that we have done with insurance consumers to understand what is it that they value most, out of their agent. And it's communication, being there for you and knowing who they are, right? Not communicating with people as a number. And so, for example, we tell people, hey, mass, huge newsletters are, an issue because they aren't personal, and it makes people feel as if they are, you're communicating with people at a mass scale and not individually. I'm going to pause just a second. It looks like we lost Rushang. I'm sure we'll get him back. It could be a network issue or something, but I'm going to continue to move on, and hopefully we see him join back up. But the price sensitive consumer can be converted to one that stays with you for value, and that's primarily what we're going to be talking about today. And to do that, you really need to give them, what they need. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about some research that a lot of companies have done during other recessions, right? So we have, looks like he's trying to reset his settings. Yeah. So we're going to get Rushang back, and we'll get him in here. But I don't want to pause too long, so I'm just going to keep us rolling here. So the research that has been conducted during other recessions and economic downturns has looked at hundreds of companies, from the largest companies like Kellogg's, Procter and Gamble, Dell, big auto companies, and McDonald's and fast food chains, even all the way down to local companies like local pool installers and things like that. So, hey, Rushang, see you're back.
I apologize for that. I'm not sure
No
what
problem,
the internet
man.
gods have in mind for today.
It's no big deal. No big deal. I was just getting into the slide that we kind of talk about how other, what other companies have done in recessions. And so this research that, has looked at hundreds of different companies consistently, time and time again, shows that marketing during recessions will increase sales and profits. And it's not just during the recession that happens, it's also after as well. So we've seen companies like, like a big example is Hyundai. When other companies started to kind of cut back in 2008, they went the other way and really started to increase marketing. And while other, manufacturers really dropped down, they stayed even and even went up a little bit. So that's just one big example. And then they also show that companies who reduce, spending in these categories are hit even worse. So another example is like the McDonald's versus Taco Bell, and I can't remember the name of the other fast food company. But when one of the people who continued to market their products went up, and McDonald's went down by like a tremendous amount. And you might think that, okay, well, I'm not McDonald's, I'm an insurance agent, completely different. And that's absolutely true. You are. But these studies also have other similar companies, local service-based companies that do the same things. And what they show there is that when you're focusing on, communication to your customers and things like that, it's very similar. And you also can't stop the marketing that you're doing. It's one of those things that's cut first. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't cut some spending if you need to, but be very, very thoughtful about what you're spending on and where. I like to simply just kind of explain it like, when other people take that axe to marketing and communication because it's the one expense that you can, cut very easily, that means there's less noise. And all of us are always talking about how difficult it is to break through the noise. And this is a gift. Rushang, kind of like what you told me the other day, is like, this is an opportunity, because when others start to slow down and you speed up, you are going to be the company that other people see. That insurance company that isn't communicating with their customers and building loyalty, those customers are still going to need insurance. Where are they going to go? They're going to go to the company that they see and that they can trust and is there for stability.
Can I
Absolutely.
share a story on this? Exactly to what Torey said. We were talking about this a couple of days ago. Kind of dovetailing to what we were talking about earlier about seeing it as an opportunity. Most people in a time of crisis, or as we're talking about here, a possibility of recession, especially as a business, you tend to slow down the pace of communications with your customers because the knee-jerk thought is, let's not rock the boat with that relationship. The story I'd like to share is a very personal one to HawkSoft, where we were hit by ransomware. It was a foreign actor in a different country that hit us, and we had the authorities and everyone involved to try to resolve this. But we had to make a determination of how do we want to communicate during this process. And we chose to over communicate more than we ever had in the past during this process. And so the cadence that we tried to keep up with is every 2 hours, sending some sort of update to those agencies that were affected by the ransomware. And it was a risk. A lot of those updates, there wasn't anything meaningful besides just to say that, hey, you guys are still top of mind for us and we're still working on it. But the feedback we were given after the event was tremendous. I mean, it really made our hearts melt. And I'm paraphrasing here, but the essence was we as customers felt empowered and we felt really good about you, HawkSoft, because we knew that we were on the top of your mind every 2 hours. It wasn't something that let's go solve this problem and forget about this audience for now. So the point being is, especially in a time of crisis or economic challenge, you have an opportunity to separate yourself from the pack by over communicating and educating and working with your clients. I mean, claims are not going to stop during a recession. Mm-hmm. What better opportunity than that to separate yourself from the pack? One tip I've heard a lot of agents tell me is, Rushang, when there's a claim, I take the proactive effort to reach out not only to my client, but to the other party as well. And that leaves that other party in a better position and better shape than they ever would. And oftentimes they'll come over to my business just because of that proactive outreach. So this is a really important point. Keep talking, stay visible. These are relationships at the end of the day. And the more you invest in them, the more we're all gonna get from them.
Yep. It's kind of like when you think about buying investments low, right? Now is an opportunity in the market. Man, I'm not giving financial advice, I should say that, but you can kind of buy some things at a discount when you're marketing. And right now, and I've read some of the reports on this, it's almost like when you invest $1,000 in marketing, that's going to be as if you invested 3,000 a few months ago, because the return that you're going to get on it is so much greater right now. And that's because a lot of other people, to your point, are afraid to communicate during difficult times. And when you show that confidence and the humility, like in the empathy to communicate with people at a time where it's difficult, it pays off. And you have to do that brave thing. And it's difficult. I think that's the hard thing, is like, I understand how difficult it is sometimes to continue to invest in things when it's also hard, for business owners, but it will really truly pay off. And we're all in this together. I think that's another important thing to know. So thanks for sharing that story, by the way. It means a lot because we don't hear enough of those types of stories. And I think agents need to share some of those kinds of stories sometimes, because I hear a lot of times that agents, they don't say this, but sometimes I feel like they're afraid to communicate with customers because they feel as if the customer remembers that they're there, they might cancel or change their policy. And it's couldn't be further from the truth. Every communication that you have with somebody is an opportunity for you to build and continue to build trust, show value, and do get them to buy other policies and increase what they're spending and talking with you. So anyway, I think that this is the most important thing. So I spent a lot of time on it. And so I wanted to then start to get into, okay, well, what do you do aside from communication? Now, how do we do it? And it really starts with data integrity. And I have a screenshot of HawkSoft's activity system. I think that's what it's called, right?
We call it the crux of HawkSoft is built on this not this interface, but this experience. We call it the action menu. And it's really what drives all your documentation, which happens a lot of it automatically. But going through this action menu, which is very intuitive for agents, because for agents, as you can see on the top of this screenshot, it's a phone coming in from the insured. So they're thinking of it in terms of where is it originating, what medium is the interaction happening through, and the action menu is what drives a lot of the history that's being generated automatically for you. That's, again, reportable. And the other thing Torey and I were talking about, the side benefit that HawkSoft had never thought of, but we've heard a lot of feedback on the action menu, is if you hire a new employee in the agency, a lot of these employees, I mean, sometimes it takes a bit for them to get comfortable with the workflows and the software. But we've heard stories of new agents that being hired or brought on into an agency, and within 4 or 5 hours, they're off and working because the action menu is really simple to navigate. So it really makes a difference training and bringing consistency and alignment across all the players in an agency.
Yeah, I love it. And I'm sure that the people who use this menu a lot have the keyboard shortcuts to just breeze through these menus and make it very easy to use. This is really optimized for data entry and also data consistency. And that's really the number one thing to, in terms of this presentation, to think about is having data about your customers and having solid data integrity is so important in times where you want to communicate with people, because you have to make sure that you've got a fresh email, that you've got all of the things in there so you actually can communicate with folks. And so all of that investment that you're putting into data integrity and data collection is going to pay off at times where you need to do this. So find how to do this in your management system, and get the data stuff figured out because it's super important. And again, using data to communicate. So we kind of already covered this. Email, postal, and texting are all inexpensive ways, even when budgets are tight. This is the third bullet on here: using data to identify groups of customers that you need to reach out to based on possible concerns. So I'm going to share a few special lists that you can build a little bit later. But what we're talking about here is make sure that you have that data and then you have a way of segmenting it. So in Rocket Referrals, you can build lists, and you can build lists in HawkSoft and run reports and things. But think about running those on a regular basis to say to find which customers are likely to leave you. Maybe they've got a certain percentage of price increase, or maybe they have a lot of policies that are high risk right now that are, a lot of not high risk in terms of, insurance standpoint, but in an economical standpoint. Are they insuring a lot of toys? Are they a loyal customer that I really should make sure that I'm communicating with on a regular basis, to make sure we retain that count? And segment your data this way. And then set up tasks to kind of continue those. In fact, I think that's the next part is retention. So one of the things that we're really trying to get at here is retention, right? We've talked a lot about communication, and what that does is it improves your retention. We all know that it's a lot less expensive to retain an existing client than it is to get a new one, especially during economic downturn times where people are super price sensitive. So the cost of acquisition is going to be a lot higher and premiums may be lower because people are looking for price differences. So you really want to hold on to the customers that you have. And so retention is huge. And what we say is this is really where you should be thinking first, because that cost of acquisition is higher, so you have to make sure that you're retaining them. The system that we recommend using to identify people that are likely to leave and also to help you resolve the feedback quickly is called the Net Promoter Score. And we have a really cool automated system to be able to help you identify people that are likely to leave. And we also combine that NPS data with things that we know to be other indicators for people leaving. And then we'll let you know about that, and even build an automated task in HawkSoft to help you retain them. But then rewarding your loyal customers with additional touches like thank you cards and gift cards. And I know it sounds kind of expensive to send somebody a gift card, but a lot of times when people are not expecting a gift, so let's say you have a new referral, someone referred someone to your business, or maybe they're a prior referral source that hasn't referred in a while, you may want to kind of trigger them. You could send them a card and say, hey, here's 10, 15 bucks, go have a cup of coffee with a friend on us. If they're not expecting that 10 or $15 turns into 100 in terms of goodwill, right? Like, people love it when you're communicating with them unexpectedly. It's kind of like when a friend does something unexpected for us and it makes us feel good. And at the end of the day, that's what you want to do, is get your customers to feel good. So create tasks then in your management system. Make sure you follow up on feedback. With HawkSoft, you can do this automatically. And I'm going to show you how to do that here in a few seconds. So retention, huge. If anybody has, we actually do have some questions. I'm going to get to these here in a second. Not about retention, so I'll get to those at the end. And so these are the tasks that we are really easy to do. Detractor follow-up. So detractor is an NPS term. So we can, in Rocket Referrals, as soon as we find somebody who isn't happy for one reason or another, we can create a task in HawkSoft for someone to follow up. And because tasks are all monitored and managed inside of HawkSoft, that's going to be in your normal workflow of doing business. So you set it up once, let the automation run, and it's going to be in there. You can also set up tasks for price increases. So find customers that have a certain percentage of increase in premium. I have a feeling that those are going to start hitting pretty hard in the next quarter or so. So we got to keep an eye out for that, and have those automated alerts go out. And don't wait for customers to see it, right? You want to be ahead of that. So you want to see that the price increase is coming and then let them know. And then data cleanup. So you might think that tasks only work for me and all of these automations only work if I have clean data, but you can also create a task that says, hey, we don't have an email for this person and I have an important thing to say. So give them a call, put their email in, and then also talk about the thing. Or it could be a data cleanup that says, hey, we don't have your spouse information on file, or whatever it is. And things like that are really, really helpful. So let me get to the next slide. And these messages and campaigns, so feedback surveys, that's the NPS, proactive rate increase communications, we talked about that, loyalty and referral thank you cards. I think that referral thank yous are one of the most important things that you have to continue to do, especially during economic times where when one of your customers refers another customer to you, you have to make sure that you're thanking them. So thinking about data entry, that's another important thing that you can train your staff to do. Is anytime you get a new prospect in, say, who was it that referred you to us? I want to send them a thank you. And that goes a really long way because it says that you appreciate referrals enough to actually thank the person that referred them. And also, if they refer themselves, you're going to send them a thank you, and that they would appreciate, you would appreciate them if they referred. So it really helps you build more referrals. Prospect campaign automations. There's a lot of low hanging fruit out there, on policies. So especially if there's bundling opportunities, right? So this is a time where you can help price sensitive consumers by bundling and things like that. So look for the ones that are really going to be beneficial for the person that's signing. So from the point of this presentation, because we're talking about price sensitive consumers and things, these are opportunities that you can find to help people during that, and don't necessarily hit the the big fancy toys and stuff like that, because it might feel a little insensitive at this time. But if you were to think about bundling type of policies and stuff like that, it's really helpful. Onboarding communications are also very important, because as we onboard customers now, think about the purchase decision that they made at a time where you don't want them to get second thoughts, right? You don't want them to, you want them to feel very good about it. And so onboarding is really, really great. It also cements their feeling about you for a long time to come. They'll know that you're there for them and things like that. So we recommend, a welcome card to just say, hey, welcome to the agency, not thank you for your purchase. It's welcome to the family type of thing. We're here to look out for you. Obviously, check-ins, education and useful topics. Let's use today's webinar as a really great example, right? We're here to educate you and to help teach you how to do things, whether you're using our products or not. And, we hope that you continue to, talk with us. And that's another thing that you want to do with your customers. So as you have useful tips and things, you can communicate that to customers. We have an automated way that we call Rocket Connect that makes it really easy to do that. But if you're not, just communicate with folks every month or so with some useful tips and topics you think that that could be used. I talked about the cross sell, and then also don't forget about your commercial customers, because they're being hit with it too. So,
and Torey, I think one of the beautiful things about this list is most of these things on this list are not very expensive. Outside of the time it takes to do them and to prepare for them, it's a time investment, not so much a monetary investment outside of that. And so they're easy to do. And one story I'd like to tell about onboarding that we personally at HawkSoft do, when an agency signs a dotted line with us, there's been multiple demos often. There's been a discovery call by our sales team. But the point being is that we've spent probably 2 or 3 hours at least with every prospect that signs with HawkSoft, understanding who they are, what their culture is, what their value is, what they care about, what their challenges are. And we document all this so that when they're onboarding, we have a 360 perspective about the customer. So one of the things we do, which I encourage you guys to do as well, is if you're collecting these rich notes and you're understanding and building relationships, sometimes like these agencies will ask them, so outside of kind of the sanity in your office and the software and bringing everything together from a workflow standpoint, everything that HawkSoft does, what other challenges does your agency have outside of technology? And we'll document these in our business case. And during the onboarding process, the onboarding consultant that's assigned to this new agency, to HawkSoft, they'll look through these notes and they'll say, oh, that agency is really concerned about how to hire the best people, for example. And we will send them a kit or a book or some resource that has impacted us on this same topic. We'll mail it to them. And what that does is it reaffirms to that agency that you weren't just listening about the things that matter to you from a business perspective. You were listening about the 360 view about that agency. So you're actually taking initiative in that agency about things that had nothing to do with the business transaction that's taking place between you guys. It's simple things like that. Again, it's not very expensive, but that's one other way that you can separate yourself from the pack.
That's awesome. I love it. Before I go to the next slide, I want to answer a few questions I see in Slack, or Slack. We use Slack. I meant the chat. Real quick to Arlene, it sounds like HawkSoft and Rocket Referrals overlap. Think about HawkSoft as your everyday management system. This is where you're getting your policy downloads and where you're putting all of the data in and where you're checking tasks and where you're working in it day to day. And Rocket Referrals is sort of the plugin on top of that that's communicating with your customers using that data, right? So they don't necessarily overlap. What they do is they work together, to make sure that you're communicating with customers. And then JP had a question about automated tasks for if a client unsubscribes from email. I think we could probably build one for that because we have that in our list filters. That would be a really easy thing to check. If not, I think that's a good one, because if they unsubscribe from your email, maybe want to give them a call and share something with them. Now, a lot of our communications can say, do this if I have email, do this if I don't. And so a lot of times if they unsubscribe from an email communication, we can set up an alternate method of that type of communication or cross-sell. And then is there an automated way to manage opt-ins for text in HawkSoft? Now, HawkSoft and Rocket Referrals both have a texting platform. They work a little bit differently. I can answer, at least in terms of Rocket Referrals, we do have an automated way to collect opt-ins by texting join to one of our numbers. You could use our system to send an email to get opt-ins for the other, HawkSoft number potentially, but that's something that we would want to look at. And one more question from Arlene, and then we'll kind of move on to the next question or slide. And Rushang, this is kind of for you. Does HawkSoft work well with healthcare, Medicare marketplace, indemnity plans, things like that?
Great question. It's one that we do get periodically. So HawkSoft was never designed for that market. We know of agencies, especially in life and health, that have used HawkSoft to augment their P&C business. What I'd recommend, Arlene, is I can have someone contact you to learn more about what you're specifically doing with healthcare, and we can talk from there. But we do have agencies that cross over from P&C into life and health as well.
Yeah, and we'll have Arlene's information so we get it to you. Okay, and then so moving on, the other piece in terms of communication is really diversifying your channels. Remember that you want to continue to communicate with people the way that they want to be communicated with, or that they initiate conversation. And so that's why we've invested so much time and energy in technology building chat that works across Google and Facebook and the web and email and text, because you never know where somebody's going to have some kind of question for you. And so right now, because people are going to go to their friends and family for information, they could be on the Facebook platform and they would say, hey, I really like this agency, and they might tag your Facebook page, and then they're going to go there and they're going to want to see that you have chat. You're not going to get 1,000 Facebook chat messages every month. You might get one or two, but those one or two are very important because you're there for them, right? And so this is the same kind of idea with web chat and Google chat and Facebook, is that you're not going to get a ton of communication, but it's the ones that you do that are super important. And so being there for them on those platforms are really nice. And Google and Facebook all have free services that you can get on there and manage it. So same with prospects. So if you have a website with chat and someone has a question, again, you're not going to get 1,000 web chats from prospects every month, but the 2 or 3 that you do, hopefully it's more than 2 or 3, but if it's just 2 or 3, those are really, really important leads to get back to very quickly, because that's the kind of person who's going to be online and they're shopping around and they want to be able to talk to someone very quickly. So this is the coolest kind of slide, I think, maybe leaving it for the end, because it's one of those extra benefits. And during an economic downturn, we don't want to think of, or don't want to forget about our own employees. We have to make sure that, we're thinking about them, because the economy impacts all of us, your customers and your team, right? So, NPS, for example, is a really great motivator for your team. When you're spending all of this time and money and effort working on customer communication and building loyalty with customers, your team is going to also get the rewards, because you're going to get the feedback that comes in that says, hey, XY, X so and so helped me at the agency and they're great. And that could be shared across the team, and you can go to everyone and say, hey, look at what we're doing. We're making a difference in people's lives. They really appreciate everything that we're working on, and thank you to the team. And you will be so surprised at how much of an impact this makes for your team to continue to perform well and to continue to communicate with people, because everything that we talked about is not going to work if you have employees that don't believe in it. And they'll believe in it when they get this feedback and they kind of see the benefits. On the flip side, it's also good to help if, hopefully you don't need to, get rid of any employees, but sometimes it happens. You have employees that aren't quite fitting into the culture or something, and they aren't treating customers. Again, customer retention is so vital. So if you've got someone on your staff that is, providing bad service or not in line with your company culture or your philosophy, NPS is a really, really good way of finding who that person is, and you can coach them, you can help them improve, or you can make sure that you're not letting go the wrong person, right? You keeping your high performers and letting go the people that aren't a good fit. So Rushang, I know you had some thoughts around the team value in aspect of this as well.
This is such a huge point for us, Torey. Thank you. HawkSoft, one of our differentiators, I know people say it and almost every business says it, but it truly is our people. And we use as a barometer every year the top 100 workplaces in Oregon. We're based just outside of Portland, Oregon. And so the top 100 workplaces is an annual event, survey, independently run. But we use that as a barometer and a mirror to ourselves on, are we as a company doing right by our employees, treating our employees right, growing employees. We always talk in leadership, the difference between management and leadership, where management is really orchestrating tasks and projects. But the next level, if you are in a position of leadership, are you growing those under you? And NPS is such a great tool to understanding not only outside entities and what they think about your company or your agency, but internally, how are your employees doing? Are they progressing? Are they growing? And that's a barometer that we use every year. So if we don't make that top 100 list, there's something wrong. But we've made it for the last 7 years consecutive, and we ranked number 5 last year in all of Oregon. And so that to us is kind of that's where the rubber meets the road, and we use that. But NPS, such a great tool to help augment that. And are we coaching on the right things? Oftentimes the employees, there's surveys that talk about this. It's not necessarily the salary or the total package compensation that they're taking home that compelled them to stay with an employer, or in your case, an agency. It's not that. Sometimes it's, did you go out and show gratefulness for what they were doing? Did you take an interest in things that they're doing outside of work? Are you growing them as people? Did you even ask the question of where do you want to be in the next 3 years? When was the last time we asked that? So it's a lot of these surrounding elements, just the human aspect of employees, and not so much the data's nuts and bolts and how much they're making. that make an impact.
Yep, absolutely. And I think the data that you collect to get to your point with coaching and kind of knowing where to focus your time and energy is really important, right? So not only are you able to say, hey, you're doing a really good job at these things, but we can all improve on our phone response times or whatever it is, and as a team we can work on it. And I think that having some visibility into what we're all doing, is super important. So I save that for last because I think that it's one of the most important things, but oftentimes is forgotten by us as people. So what to do next? I like to kind of end it with a couple of high level summary things. Number one, clean up your data. Right? Make sure that you have some good, clear data entry processes. Use tasks to make sure that there's a consistent automated workflow. And that means that you're not going to forget something, and that your team's going to have a way to do things consistently. Minimize the price sensitivity from consumers with proactive, consistent communications. It will make a huge impact on their price sensitivity, I promise you. Stay visible and confident. So don't fall into the temptation to start cutting back on communication. Now's an opportunity to really show who you are, and that be confident that we can do this, and we are strong, and we're going to be here throughout this recession. And people want that because that makes them feel comfortable, and that's what they need. Diversify communications so that people can find you where they are and take care of your team. So in a nutshell, this is what we talked about. We just spent an hour talking about it. So I always like this last slide because it all feels like we just boiled everything down to 2 minutes, but this is really the nuts and bolts of it. So questions. I'm going to go to our question slide. I'll probably just flip us over to our cameras and just essentially open it up for questions. And if anybody has anything that is that we haven't answered yet, feel free to use the chat. Rushang, any closing thoughts that you have for people?
No, I think we've covered a lot of ground and really important points. I very selfishly, from the marketing department, I really encourage you to over communicate with your clients, and use a time of recession as difficult as it is to turn it around from a threat and into an opportunity. A lot of times we do all these SWOT analysis and things in business where things fall under the threat category, but anything under the threat category, keep in mind, with the right mindset and tactical plan, can be changed into an opportunity. So it really gives your business an opportunity to make some really solid relationships and separate yourself for the pack. So.
Cool, man. Well, I think we got through most of our questions. So I think to really sum it up, if you want to learn more about HawkSoft, it's hawksoft.com. Rocket Referrals is rocketreferrals.com. And we'll be more than happy to answer any other questions that you have through those platforms. Also, you'll be getting a recording of this, which will have all of the slides and everything like that. But otherwise, I think I do see a couple of questions. I'm going to answer those offline, so I'll get to you. They're very specific questions that I'll answer, directly. However, I really appreciate everybody's time, and thank you so very much for being here today.
Thank you, everyone.